Yo, you are now tuned into another episode of the 3% Show, where my motto has always been people will tell you 97% of the truth, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful struggle. However, the 3% unspoken holds power in your life, no matter if it's good, bad, or what the rest. So today I am honored to invite DJ Q on the show. The reason being is I've seen this gentleman just grow and thrive. When I was searching for something, when I used to go to poetry spots or just to hear good music, you had authentic people who play good music, no matter if it's neo soul, no matter if it's old school, bounce, whatever the case might be. This gentleman has stayed true to who he is, like I told him. He's still the same person, but he's grown. And I just want to give him his flowers now. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. DJ Q, how you doing, brother?
Definitely, man. I'm good. Good. Really good.
How's that Midwest treating you right now?
The Midwest is great, man. It's funny that you specify the Midwest, because we usually have to make that, that distinction because, people just don't know where Kansas City is sometimes.
We in the middle of the map. So when they call Chicago Midwest,
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, that's north. To me, in my mind, that's north.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Chicago is still Midwest, but yeah, it's like that kind of like Northwest kind of, but it's like that middle ground, them in Detroit, but it's still like Midwest. It's just up and down. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So, brother,
yeah.
let's jump into this, man, because
Mhm.
I'm excited to have you, and I wanted to have you and Shad on the same show.
Mhm.
I guess it kind of works out pretty cool because you deserve your own stage, and Shad does too. And
Mhm.
the schedule, sometimes things can get a little bit messed up. Well, number one, I don't like introducing people in my intro. Brother, tell us about who DJ Q is, because I know people seen you from You Lit, from First Fridays to huge events to album openings. Go ahead and you got the floor, young brother.
Oh man. Yeah, who I am, DJ Q. Um, man, my 17th year just started this month in October. So it's like you said, it's been quite a career. Like I wish I could just pinpoint, one like turning point. But I even you said in the intro, just even like, he's grown and kind of been the same. It's been constant growth, especially in my career. Just haphazardly falling onto a career of being a DJ. That wasn't my, like thing at first, but I mean, we get to it and, 17 years later, here I am really kind of explaining it. Like I said, I couldn't even pinpoint one event that, people could remember because it's like I've really kind of done that and been that for a lot of different like, and I won't even say generations of nightlife, but I can't say generations of nightlife. Yeah, it's been different generations of nightlife, but
Different
y-
generations.
yeah, and you look at you can I can say multiple generations in nightlife because when you look at nightlife, it kind of cycles every 2 to 3 years, and especially in the Midwest, a lot of the bar business, whether it's restaurants, whether it's just plain out bars, clubs, whatever it is, you're looking at a shelf life of like 2 to 3 years.
Absolutely.
Um, but you look at, like the Epicurean that has been open for 40 years. You look at, there's a couple of different like spots around town,
Yeah.
yeah, that have had like some longevity. But when you look at the Epicurean, that's 40 years, and then also, what they've done with the juke house down there, just even in that family of the Shelbys.
Right.
And I didn't even plan that, but yeah, RIP to Mr. Shelby. Mr. Shelby recently passed. My father recently passed. His year is coming up next month. And I talk so familiar about the EP because that's my father went there for probably the 40 years that they were open.
We couldn't wait to go.
So
Westport was one thing, but when you can step in the F, that's something totally different. That's how you know you're a grown man. when you
Yeah,
get
definitely. Like, and that's exactly what the ep was, and still is to Kansas City. Like, if you
yeah,
you could say the ep to most anybody in the Black community, and they know exactly where the ep is, and they probably had an uncle or a cousin or a grandpa or a parent.
get your first cougar as a young man.
Yeah.
When they looked
So
at you, they've been playing for longer. They said, "Let me dip my toe into this young Thundercat."
yeah, definitely. Nah, and that's just what the ep has been, man. It's just been that. So again, when you talk about generations of nightlife, just even in 17 years, I've seen the ebbs and flows of Kansas City and especially the nightlife scene. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been a little while. Really 20 years. Like I could say 20 years because I've been out of college almost 20 years now. Um, and after college, that's what it was. It was me building a career in nightlife.
And see, we're gonna dip into that because I got
Uh-huh.
questions. But
Oh no, yeah,
I think
let's
it's
run
very
them. Let's run
important
them.
what you said about just the nightlife period because we come from the city where we love our city,
Hmm.
and we also come from a city where people don't handle their business the right way. So you'll have a club open up, and in 2 years it's closed down. Then it's opened up, maybe the same owner but just different name. So I think Kansas City, for the most part, has always tried to establish itself for itself, as opposed to
Yeah,
the Bay and down south and everything else. And I can honestly say, 10 years ago when I left, um, I always thought that people in KC talented musically, poets, DJs and more. But I'm glad that they finally found a voice. So this last time I went home, it was the best time I've ever had because I can see how rich the artists feel. I can see that the artistic and musically inclined people, singers and more, are actually doing their thing as opposed to mimicking what they hear and see on the radio.
definitely. And
That's
when you where did you move to?
I'm down in Houston, Texas. I've been here for 10 years.
Okay. So
So every
yeah.
time I come home, I try to take something with me. I got my drip water from my boys.
No, definitely.
St.
Yeah.
I got the Far From Rich on. So I always try to
Yeah.
stay connected. And like I said, I've been following you and more people from KC because you're never too far from home. You can always find something.
Definitely. Definitely.
So this is what I
Yeah.
would like to know. What high school did you go to? And then what college did you go to? Because I used to hang out here and there, and I'm originally from the dot, but we always go to
Hmm.
Grand Slam Liquors to get alcohol. And I first
Yeah.
seen you at the U-Lit event down in the River Market. Give us a little bit of insight about you because you don't talk a lot, but you're a very insightful person. So tell us a little bit about your roots, man.
I went to Center High School. So that's like it's almost like the opposite end of the KC Metro, as opposed to like Wyandotte. Like, we're the south end of KC. You look at South Kansas City, the EP is in the south is in
Wow.
South Kansas City. So
When you did
um
graduate?
I graduated in 2000.
Okay, you was up there with
Um
me, Herb and them, Big Herb.
yeah, so yeah, Big Herb. It's a lot of those guys, man. It's funny you say that because if we want to talk about high school, we can talk about high school because like, man, in high school, it was really a difference because I came from the inner city, grew up on 55th and Garfield.
Mm,
So, very midtown, coming from that in the 80s. And then in the early 90s, moving out to the to South Kansas City, going to Center High School. It was like a culture shock almost. You go from being in the hood, seeing, poverty, all around you. Even though we were in a fairly decent neighborhood, you still see poverty all around you.
right.
But uh even in that, moving out here was sort of a culture shock. Like a lot of the kids were different, especially Black kids. They, coming from families with money, and things like that.
Mhm.
um you really kind of see, I was able early to really see like the different sides. So again, you talk about growth. My parents being able to move from in the inner city to
Mhm.
get in a house in South Kansas City. That's, that we talked earlier. Well, I think I was talking to somebody earlier about Grandview, but when you
Okay.
look at
That's when they
Grandview,
had this. The first Sam's Club I ever went to was in Grandview, and it was
Yeah.
no blacks at all
Yeah.
like out there. I did
Yeah.
Grandview. It took so first of all, it took so long to get out there when you don't know anything about it. But now, before I moved, I actually lived in Grandview, and it's it's where everybody goes. It's the go-to now when people
Yeah.
want to feel like they made it and start good families and all. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's what Grandview was in the 90s. Like Grandview was, the place where you can go and like almost get a better life. But right before Grandview, you have that South Kansas City area, Holmes, Bannister area,
Right.
that really was like a one of the more wealthy parts of the county,
Absolutely.
um, especially in the 90s. So yeah, just looking at that, being able to see both sides at an early age. I think we moved out here. I may have been like 11 or 12. So I went from, you know, in KC schools at that time, it was fifth grade. And then in middle school, it was sixth, seventh, and eighth.
Mm-hmm.
I moved out to the center district. It's sixth grade was still elementary, and then middle school, seventh and eighth.
Word.
Um, yeah. Yeah, so it was a little different. So again, and even the grading scale, like when I moved to the center district, it wasn't A's, B's, C's, and D's. Like I think it was E's and like it was something
We found
crazy.
out there's some civilized Negroes that's acting like thugs out here my age. You got E for effort. You didn't get A's.
Yeah, no, but their grading system, it just used like a different letters instead of just the typical ABC. Now you still had D's and F's, that was kind of like the end of it. But yeah, it was a different grade. So again, it was just like a different, like total different like culture shock from school to playground and stuff. But when you bring up Big Herb, like Big Herb hung out with my neighbor Corey. So Corey Blevins,
Levin.
yeah, yeah, those guys, they were all in the sports.
Right.
But they were 4 years older than me. So they were like, they were guys I looked up to, especially moving out here. And my recreation as a kid was sports, it's football and baseball.
Absolutely.
But those guys being in the basketball, I got a lot of street ball, like just a lot of that.
You got that
You get a lot of that experience. Yeah, you get
Well,
that experience as an athlete.
I always say the basketball team, football players swear they hate us, but they always got a basketball in their hand, no matter MTV Cribs, celebrity.
Not
Trying to
definitely.
be cool like us.
Definitely. Yeah. But then you look at the other end of it, like basketball players always want to be the rappers and want to be the actors and want to do the next thing.
We ain't
Yeah.
we ain't got no need.
Now definitely. So
before it happened.
yeah, so again, you talk about like progression, but that's it's funny to have that in a sense. But yeah, that's what I moved out here to, was just a lot of just being surrounded by athletes. But even younger than that, being exposed to music from, I mean, I played music all the way up until I think about sixth grade. And then seventh grade, I leaned more towards sports. But I mean, from living in the inner, I played the tuba.
Oh, brother, I played the
Yeah,
trombone all the way
yeah,
to first chair trombone.
yeah. I grew up in the church. So like my mom's Catholic, my dad family is more Southern Baptist.
Mhm.
So I grew up uh in children's choirs and in plays in school and church. Between the Catholic Church, Risen Christ, it was over here on Linwood, kind of by the new Linwood Shopping Center. So I over there, but then went to Metropolitan down the street with my dad sometimes. So again, yeah. So just down the street, like it wasn't even 2 full city blocks. These churches are away from each other. So grew up a lot in church, grew up a lot around music. And then when I moved out south, it was less music and it was more, sports, organized sports. But even still then, I did baseball growing up and then played football moving out here. But yeah, high school was one of those experiences again where you talk about growth. Like I came in a freshman under Herb, and Herb and Corey and a lot of those guys.
Him out there.
Huh?
They had Kunta Blackman before you got there. That big old.
Yeah, no, Kunta was out there. Yeah, I knew Kunta as well. Like it's a lot of those guys, man. They were they were like mentors to me earlier, just because they were a little older, and being in the neighborhood and shooting hoops with them or throwing the football around or just whatever, you could kind of see like the talent level you had to be at.
Right.
In the inner city, it's not necessarily, playing organized sports. You're normally playing with, sandlot football or, just hooping in somebody's, backyard on a rusty hoop or something. Like, we didn't have the gyms to go play at, but then you move out south and people's driveways are almost like a high school basketball court with a regulation 3-point
And they
line.
got the paint on the line.
That's what I'm saying. Like regular,
And
and it's still over here in my neighborhood, man. It's a house that we went to, that literally was right on the corner that we played basketball at. And then there was a guy around the corner, Harrison, I think it was. Yeah, we used to play at Harrison's house. And then there was another guy, Vernon, we used to play at. So it was a lot of different courts around here again to play hoops. Then you got all these fields between the houses.
right.
Where you can play football. So we had a couple of places to play football, whether it was snowing or raining,
Right.
and you couldn't play basketball, so you played football. So it's it was really focusing on athletics, but then shit again, we go from high school to college.
So
I
what
go to
college?
college. I went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Let me
So
tell you something, brother. What is so
mhm.
amazing, and I tell a lot of people this. I'm born and bred in Wyandotte County, right? I
Yeah.
saw the movie School Days, and my cousin Billy came when I was in. This is when I was in elementary, and he had the diamond with a K in it. I said, brother, I know you in the South, but who branded you?
Yeah.
That was my first. And I think he went to Jackson State or Tennessee State. But being in the Midwest, this is how I think our growth is coming as a people, because I only thought that Black colleges existed. Like, I wanted to go to Hillman. I thought Hillman was a real
You thought Hillman was a real school.
Grambling, Howard, Hillman, Spelman. That's all I saw on BET. I didn't even know that we had Langston, Lincoln, and
Yeah.
Arkansas. They're all 3 hours away. And I never knew that until my senior year. Like you said, I moved from Wyandotte County because it was just time. Mentally, I was done, and I moved to Leavenworth, and I graduated from Leavenworth. So like you, I was like, this is weird. It was a culture shock for me. But I love Leavenworth. But it's just so interesting how we didn't communicate and we didn't talk to people about Black colleges, because back then I was told to go to KU, UCLA, and more. So you went to Southern. How was that coming from the Midwest?
Uh Coming from the Midwest, it was something that I always wanted to do from a young age. Like I think I decided at a very young age that one, I wanted to go to a HBCU, and then two, that it was going to be Southern University. And the reason for that,
Okay, go ahead.
now, yeah, the reason for that, again, playing sports, um, and playing sports for the Shelbys, the Shelby family that ran the Epicurean. Talk about a full circle, but the Shelby family that ran the Epicurean, they also had a football team, and so they sponsored different sports teams. And so one of my teammates, his parents went to Southern, like they were from Louisiana. They met there,
I'm
you
proud.
know.
They got it everywhere.
Yeah, and so being my father being in the Swingers Golf Organization, a golf organization they're probably coming up on about 50 years, 40 or 50 years as an organization. But I mean, I I I still got my dad's house, so I've got all his trophies and all of that stuff. So again, very sports centered, but uh playing baseball with the Goree family, uh and actually their son runs he runs Go Catering, is GEAU Catering. And we still kind of work with each other here and there. So, really just having a lot of, people that I can network with early in life into later in life. But his parents, we would go there every Thanksgiving. My mom being from New Orleans, we always had, the
I was wondering
typical,
what the hitch was. Okay, New Orleans.
yeah. So now you see it coming together. Like my mom being from New Orleans, and really my mom and my sister, and then my mom had me here in KC, um but yeah, we would go and kick it with a couple of families, and a couple of those families were in Wyandotte. And it's the Daniels family. It's a Yeah, it's a couple of Daniels. So Trey and Melanie Daniel. Uh
Big Train.
uh Trey went to Wyandotte High School. So
Okay, I do
and
know Train. Yeah.
yeah, and he was a quarterback there. In high
Mhm.
school, I was a quarterback. So again, like having that influence and being able to watch guys um, develop as I'm a young man developing underneath them. So like I've always had that advantage of being able to have like mentors, near, whether they knew they were mentors or not.
Absolutely.
Just in conversation. But yeah, Southern University was that. Circling that back around. I knew about the Bayou Classic at 9, 10, 11 years old.
Mhm.
So I'm watching Southern and Grambling, and back then BET, they always showed
What it
you
was.
something of Bayou Classic.
Mhm.
So either they would show, sometimes BET would air the step show, or whatever it is.
Shoot, coach,
Uh,
halftime show.
yeah, well, the halftime show and all that was always on NBC. So like NBC has kind of had it for, and I think Bayou Classics probably close to 50 years as well.
Mhm.
Um, so you look at the type of traditions, 40, 50 years, our parents really just kind of being in that realm
Mhm.
of all of these very iconic, you know, things to celebrate. So it's only right that I fell into entertainment. The Shelby's baseball team, they ran a club that went for forever, but then my father's there all the time. But yeah, uh going back to Southern, like Southern was I went to college for 2 years, but I ended up dropping out before I finished my second year. And going to college for me was really just like me getting out of my shell, like being a young kid. Even though I was in choir and all of that, I was really shy. And I really didn't know how to express myself like that. But then moving into going to school out of state, but still having family down there,
Mhm.
it was a unique experience, but it got me out my shell.
So is that where you kind of discovered that you love music enough where you wanted to
uh
stay, or
that wasn't where I discovered I love music enough to want to DJ.
mm,
But that's the South is where I learned club culture.
absolutely,
Um, and it was all across the South, because when you so I get to Southern, and one of my aunts that still lives in that still lived in New Orleans at the time. She's the one that drove me to school, and her daughter really took care of me, because her daughter went to a HBCU. So she's graduated and on her way to being married, and a grown adult life. And
mhm,
her little cousin comes down here to go to a HBCU right up the road in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge is about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour drive from New Orleans.
mhm.
So my cousin that went to Clark Atlanta, and even then I visited her for when she graduated college. I think I was fourth or fifth grade. So again,
Let me find out you for real drumline material. Let me
not that,
find out
man.
you like one of these
Yeah,
where you just happen to pop up out of nowhere.
yeah, and that's what it was, man. I made the decision last minute to go to college. And then that summer I decided I was gonna go to college. Went down there. I was gonna study physical therapy.
Mm.
So again, I'm just doing something close to sports because I think that's, I'm thinking that's where I want to be. I want to be closely attached to football or something in the sports world. Um, and man, I get to school and I get to partying.
That's how
And
I don't remember my first 2 years living in Houston with the All-Star game,
yeah,
Super Bowls. I lost it. I lost 2 years of my life because I don't know how I was getting home. And I
and
don't
that's
party that hard.
you look at how Houston has really like become like the almost
New
the
black.
capital of nightlife, and especially of black nightlife. You look at rap a lot, and all the ties that Jay Prince and all of those guys have, from the music industry to sports to everything, and then you have Drake closely attached to it. So people, like, when they look at going to day parties, especially when the pandemic happened and your state is shut down, where you going? Oh, well, Texas is open, so I'm going to
And we are.
Dallas or I'm going to Houston.
We are.
Yeah.
It ain't. I'm so tired of white parties, brother.
Yeah.
I want them to have black parties in the summertime because I am
Yeah.
tired of trying to shop and find something that ain't nobody else wearing.
And so again, when you talk about something that you seeing in the South, and you seeing all of these black people, like, I'm glad you said that, you was tired of all these white parties. Man, I come back home from school, my first semester around this time, Thanksgiving. I come back from school. No, I didn't come back for Thanksgiving. I came back for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Come back to school, come back home from school. And there's not really much to do, especially for somebody my age, 18, 19, coming back home from school. Like, the most you could do is go to like some little house parties. I think the Red Barn was doing stuff
And had
around
the hot
then.
summer nights where they was doing a percolator still.
No, and so they had, I think they had just gotten rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like they stopped doing hot summer nights either while I was in high school or just not too long after I graduated.
Probably like 99.
Um,
Like that, yeah.
yeah, because it was like late 90s. I feel like they stopped doing that. So again, you had nowhere for teenagers to go. Some people knew about Tremors in Lawrence.
Oh, the
Um,
trimmers. Oh my God.
and then I had, when I talk about the Goree family, they that went to Southern. Um, they lived out in Olathe, and so not far from him is you had that teen club out there. I forget what it was called,
The
on
one you
135th.
going to
Yeah, it
elite.
was like Millennium 2000 or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we talking about early 2000s time. So when you look at that time, you're looking at like the emergence of like neo soul and what people know like the early 2000s neo soul to be. That's really kind of that golden era for neo soul. But yeah, that's being built. But there's not really clubs for people to go to. So again, like, the South taught me clubs. So I've been telling people probably my whole career, my whole DJ career, the past 15 to 20 years, I've been telling people like Houston is my second favorite city. My first favorite is New Orleans, just because growing up between New Orleans and Kansas City is definitely a difference, but it's like, my roots, my mom's side of the family, most of what I identify with is New Orleans culture. So growing up, I'm eating gumbo, and I'm eating blue crab and a lot of shrimp. Like,
And all that.
yeah.
All
And
this,
so,
I want some Brothers Chicken so bad right now. Just take
yeah.
me to the gas station. Let me get some chicken strips.
Yeah. Nah, so it's that, it was that for me growing up. So when people's like, damn, your favorite city ain't Kansas City, and it's like, yeah, like, I love Kansas City, but New Orleans is home for me. And that's the culture I grew up loving. And so even with that, a splash of Kansas City with, in that. And I mean, even more than a splash, you could just say a splash in New Orleans. Like, it's the half and half for me in that, because my dad's from KCK. And that's where a lot of black people really in the Kansas City area, that's where they originated from, was Wyandotte. So it was that. But man, we veered so far off of college, but like, yeah, Man, college was that college was that for me because I was going down there with Trey Daniels. He was playing on a baseball team at the same time. So again, having yeah, he played at Southern.
You know the twins, Raymond and Damon.
I knew them as well.
I grew up with them. That's who I hang out with and smoke
Yeah,
cigars with. Ray. Wait until I
yeah,
tell Ray. Because they
yeah.
are, boy, you talk about Southern, they be like, man, look.
Nah, it was man in Southern. So again, like you look at the proximity of like what you have with certain people, and I was just kind of always in the right place at the right time. You look at Southern, when I get to Southern, David Banner is like he's like up next. Like David Banner 02, 03, 04, even going beyond that. David Banner went to Southern. But David Banner really left his mark on Southern because he was class president at the time. And so, you know, the late 90s, think about that. David Banner is the class president of Southern University, like a very prestigious HBCU, especially in Louisiana. So like it was always legend. You would hear about like, you know, David Banner doing Spring Fest and Homecoming with the likes of UGK, 8 Ball and MJG, you know, so look at the mid 90s, and you even look at now, like you know, Jackson State had who was a Young Dolph. He was hopping around in the locker room with the football team after homecoming. And it's like, you know, and I think Brittany Renner was down there. So you had like some people down there, but like that's what HBCU homecomings are. It's just it's a spectacle.
And I think it's super dope because it's starting to come more alive. You're starting to see, even from the athletics part, you're starting to see more kids want to go to, you know, HBCUs. We got Shaq's son down here at TSU, the youngest one. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that continue to highlight things, not necessarily for the party, because I heard PV party like no other, but just to be able to be in a culture where you are surrounded by individuals that look like you, professors that look
Yeah.
like you, and you have to figure out how to deal with each other, as opposed to how sometimes you have to code switch, or some people naturally code switch when they get out amongst, you know, businesses and universities.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point, so you leave Southern, and I appreciate you because I think this is some information that people wouldn't even think about you unless they had a conversation. And for
Oh
me,
yeah.
I'm a person that I'll laugh and joke and I'll smile and all, but I don't let too many people into my realm. So I appreciate you, you know, opening up and having a conversation with me. At what point did you figure out or start messing around with music?
So again, I grew up, you know, playing the tuba. So I've always had that musical ear.
Mhm.
Um, it's wild because you know, I said my father passed like almost a year ago. I had found out that um he used to hang out with some of the guys that started the group Bloodstone.
Mm.
Because they all went to Central High School together. So, and anybody in Kansas City, they know where Central High School is, but like that's how the legacy of like, you know, music really is in my roots.
Mhm.
Like, and you hear people say that, but it's like for me, I've been able to like, especially in the passing of my parents recently, I've been able to kind of put pieces to the puzzle together that, you know, I might not have necessarily put together when I was a kid. But again, you know, 17 years in that. But as far as like music as a DJ, again, that's what college was. Being able to see the club scene, but then coming back home around like '02, I started going out, and I wasn't quite 21 yet. But I knew a lot of bouncers. I had a relative that was a bouncer around at different clubs.
Mhm.
So he would get me in underage. So that you know, even speaking of that, coming home, my first summer in 2001, I started going to clubs around Westport that he worked. And you know, at the time back then, it was Stanford's.
I had Stanford
Stanford's,
Nick was at the door, and yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
RP
So
Big Nick. Go ahead.
so yeah, and even RIP to Big Nick, definitely, because even that, like my cousin having backstories with him getting in the nightlife, um he really was kind of one of the first people to introduce me to a side of nightlife that was behind the scenes.
Right.
Him being a bouncer, so he saw I like to go out. So if it was a concert coming up and he was working, here, I'm gonna throw you a security shirt. You can come kick it with us. Um, so it was that. But then also I told you about Big Herb's homie Corey.
Yeah.
Corey was doing parties up at Mo West.
Okay.
But then he was also doing parties here. So I would go to his parties at Mo West, kind of talk to him, and he would tell me about the business side of nightlife. So, I'm figuring out how to throw parties and all that. And then traveling from school to school, I started meeting the likes of like K-Tone, who's in Denver now. And he's really known for, on the mixtape circuit, but a lot of independent artists, especially that come from the Bay Area and out west,
Right.
they going through K-Tone, especially if you want to go to Denver. So K-Tone went to LU down in Jeff City. Then you had DJ Fresh here.
Legendary.
Yeah.
He been around about as long as the app with that wave one finger if you want more liquor. Wave one finger if
Yeah.
you want more liquor.
Yeah, that's funny. And that's so funny that you remember like the different things that him as a showman. Because like again, getting into music, DJ Fresh was like one of the first DJs that I sat and watched. And it's full circle moment because I just came from his house before we got on this interview. But DJ Fresh was one of the first DJs I saw that was a showman when it came to like being a DJ. When you look at Kid Capri, you look at Kid Capri and you see him on Def Comedy Jam and all this, but you really don't see Kid Capri unless you go to the club.
Right.
DJ Fresh was my Kid Capri. And like him just being able to not only pick the right songs, but be technical, being able to scratch, do all the tricks and everything. But on top of being a DJ, just the mic work and being able to talk to people as they're partying and people not say, "Oh, I wish the DJ would shut up." You might go some places
For
and it's
real.
like, damn, the DJ is talking way
Like
too
real life.
much.
Real spill. Because we
Yeah.
went through that season, 4 years ago, where they had the person with the microphone just walking around the club talking. And I was
Yeah.
like, please tell this dude to be quiet or give me the mic or something.
Yeah, but that shows you the essence of like what hip hop is. Like, hip hop culture and black culture as a whole. It was always a DJ and an MC. And when you get, well down the line from the late 70s, early 80s, and then you look at early 2000s, the new millennium, yeah, like party hosting got kind of annoying. But that was the South, because the South always had like that clown, that jokester kind of kid that was around, but he was always like charismatic. So it's like you see him in the club, you a DJ, give him a mic because he's gonna hype people up. But again, you look at DJ Fresh, he's doing two jobs in one.
Absolutely.
And so that was
move the crowd.
Yeah, and that was something I saw in him. But then the same thing with K-Tone. K-Tone was a college DJ that just bounced around Missouri. And I would see him. I think I saw him doing the first party I saw him at was doing Mizzou's homecoming. And it was like the black side of Mizzou's homecoming. I think it was at like the Holiday Inn or so. It was some,
We ran out the Holiday Inn. That was our thing.
Yeah. And I think this was an alpha party at the time, but like so the alphas rented that out, and then they get DJ K-Tone from Columbia and Jeff City's probably like 30 minutes apart. So, you get the hottest DJ at the HBCU. And because Mizzou's homecoming is like a statewide thing. You got CMSU, Mo West, you got the schools on this side of the state, Joplin. Then you got St. Louis. So you have a lot of people, and even people from Chicago and stuff really converging on Columbia, Missouri. And man, when I tell you, like, I get to this party and he's just killing it. and like he's killing it. So again, this is before I'm a DJ, before I'm even thinking about doing this, and I'm looking at him like amazed, like he is really killing it. But not only is he playing Kansas City's music, he's playing St. Louis music, he's playing like down south music, and then it's K-Tone, so he's playing West Coast. So it's like being able to play, like, again, you talked about versatility earlier, just seeing
Mhm.
somebody with that type of showmanship, but not being in a box of just playing the hood stuff, like
Right.
being able to be well versed as a DJ, and especially in college, you have to be that because you're playing for people that are
All over the world. Well, all over the country.
everywhere now.
Mhm.
And now it's all over the world because you look at how a lot of African culture is really
Got
becoming a
soca, you
norm.
got ska, you got all that.
Yeah. So but yeah, that was my start in music, man, just partying around the state, whether it was in St. Louis, Kansas City, whether it was in Lawrence or Manhattan,
Mhm.
wherever it was, anywhere that I partied, it was some of those DJs. And then you throw in a mix of like DJ Rice and then DJ Shad. You mentioned Shad earlier,
Yes.
talking about him. Shad was one of my earlier influences, especially when you look at that neo soul
Man.
era. Shad was one of my influences because again, I'm kicking it with party DJs and guys that control the mic and use everything. They use song selection and very technical scratching and mixing and blending skills.
Mhm.
um but then DJ Shad is different from that. Shad is a very technical guy, but he's quiet.
Man,
And
look, don't say a word. I was at his wedding. I was in the wedding. And I was like, "Are you good?" I'm thinking in my mind, "Is he good?" But he's always been quiet like that.
yeah, and Shad is that. But when you look at when you have a conversation with Shad,
Mhm.
he is a music nerd.
He's a savant, a musical savant.
And and when you talk to him about music, he's like how a lot of people see um what's his name from the Roots? I was about to say Black Thought, and it's not
Questlove.
Black Thought. Questlove. The way
Yeah.
people look at Questlove as far as like being a music historian, like locally, that would have been DJ Shad for me. Like Shad really knew a lot of different eras of music, but not only the eras of music, but like the different genres within that.
Mm.
And being able to mix and blend a lot of that music at your poetry nights and your different backpacker hip hop events, like just seeing Shad, maneuver in and out of those lanes as well, but still being able to do the club zins. Because when I started doing
Oh my
when I
God.
when I started doing Zen, I was doing Sunday, Shad was doing Friday, and then DJ Sunup was doing Saturday. So it was like you got three very different kinds of DJs, throughout the weekend. And but that's what Shad like helped me with earlier in my career, just
Right.
seeing him. Because around that time when I met Shad is when I fell into DJing. Like when I got into DJing, it was doing ULIT.
That was gonna be my next
it
segue too.
Yeah, and it started out with that. But man, that's what the transition was. Like during the week in Kansas City, if I wanted to go out very early 20s, it's the more eclectic events. On the weekends, if I'm not going out here, I'm going to somebody's college. So if it wasn't Mo West, if it wasn't, a UMKC party here, if it wasn't Lawrence or sometimes K-State, again, all over Missouri, if it wasn't somewhere on the road, I'm somewhere, and I'm figuring it out. But yeah, that was my start, man. ULIT.
So let's talk a little bit about ULIT, one time for the one time, and then I want to get into your current projects and what you're currently doing. Shout out to DJ Shad. I feel like you. Shad introduced me to Eric Roberson, to Tidra Mosley. He
Facts.
gave me Sonra. He made me realize who Gil Scott Heron was. And I
Yeah.
got to shout out Amber too, because that was my ride boy. Me and Amber used to kick it while she was there.
Yeah.
But like I told you, I offered to pay DJ Shad to teach me how to DJ
Yeah.
because I like to tell people I have musical Tourette's. Anybody that knows me knows My Spotify list before I deleted it had everything. And I'm that type of person that when I'm at a club and the DJ is killing it, which is rare, but they got a dude named Good Grief down here who's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always listening to see, okay, what are you going to play next? In my mind, I have the next song queued. But when they release it, I'm like, oh, shit. So it all depends on the freedom of the DJ. And then sometimes, you know your set because you know what kind of club you're in. Tell us about
Mm-hmm.
you, Lick, because that was the first time I saw you. I believe it was you, G, and they had so many different people that were just coming through and hanging and lounging. For me, that was like our Def Poetry Jam slash, to me, without the label of grown and sexy, that was the right kind of crowd. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's when I first seen you spin, and that's when Bilal was out. That's
Mm-hmm.
when we had Kanye just breaking. So you would be upstairs, and then they opened up the downstairs. How'd you feel about you lit in the poetry scene?
Yeah. So again, getting home around 2002. I think they established ULIT in 2004, but I may have met G at a poetry night, I think around '03, because it was around '02, '03. I started going to this poetry night at Danny's.
Yep.
Um in downtown Kansas City. It's
Dang,
now called
Danny,
it's
the
not
little scary stairs. Go ahead.
yeah. Now it's called Anton's, like it's right across from Nara. But um yeah, it used to be Danny's Big Easy. So again, another full circle moment. Danny's Big Easy was a Creole New Orleans style restaurant. You can go there and get some pretty good gumbo, red beans and rice, but then they had some chefs in there that were really good. And then the upstairs was a event space.
Right,
So
right.
they did I think it was a Tuesday. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday, but I think it was a Tuesday open mic, because on Monday nights you had I think Shad was playing the hip hop night. It was like a backpacker hip hop night at Riot Room in Westport. And so the next like artsy type of night was like Tuesday at Danny's. And I met G up there because G went up there doing some poetry, and I heard his accent. So after the show, we talking, and I'm like, I heard your accent. Where you from? And he was like, New Orleans. He's like, my mama from Louisiana. Yeah, just went through G.
Okay.
How G do.
What's your
Yeah.
okay?
Exactly, G. And even speaking of G, man, he's running a catering business. He's running his catering business up here.
I've been
Um,
trying to get some of that food for 10 years now. I keep missing them every time I go home, but
yeah.
that brother be putting his foot and
And
risking it.
man, and he's one of those guys, man, you can randomly call him and be like, hey man, I was cooking whatever. And he used to do that with my mom. My mom worked at a Holiday Law Firm. It's a law office in Midtown around here. And she he would go bring her lunch. Like,
That's super cool.
he call her up, and whether he's making stuffed shrimp, or he might have made a bunch of jambalaya or just whatever. Him and her, they would just exchange stuff, and I mean that's up until today. And even me talk about him meeting him around 2003, 2004. That just shows how like interconnected, you supposed to meet people. There's certain people in your proximity
Mhm.
um that just always stay there. And Bonafide G has been that.
I miss
So
longevity, man. Because I
yeah,
remember I met his dad at Club Rain, and I bought his dad a drink, and we was
yeah,
chopping it. Lo and behold, I moved to Houston, and I'm in Guns Point, they hood, which I think is I would move there any day for $470. They Crips and Bloods walk hand in hand. The Louisiana,
yeah,
with the other gas station, but
yeah,
the same apartment complex that I moved out of because I was homeless for a little while, but I moved up the street and G's daddy lived next door and he had records everywhere,
yeah.
everywhere. So I told G, I'm like, man, I think I live by your daddy. And I put him on the phone. So I understand when you talk about that 6 degree of separation and people that stick. And that's the reason why
Nah,
you're on the show,
definitely.
because you never know who's paying attention. And I've always dug you as a person. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, and it's just always been that. But yeah, so even going back to ULIT, you know, the other half of ULIT would have been Ant. And I
Mhm.
mean, Anthony Montgomery, and he wouldn't let you forget his name, because he Chicago native, you know, landed in Kansas City, and both of them being chefs, um, they really had a grip on the nightlife scene. You know,
Mhm.
they knew it, when you're in the service industry, you meet everybody,
Right.
and you know, nightlife really becoming this commodified type of industry to branch off of the service industry. Yeah, like all the chefs know each other, the DJs know each other. So, and then all of those people kind of, you know, you if you're a DJ working at different spots or a chef working at different spots, you're gonna meet a lot of different people. And then even
Mhm.
when you're going out, and that's what it was. We end up linking up. Danny's had ended up closing down, so it wasn't any poetry in the city. So they started doing ULIT, and I had kind of started hanging around them a little bit,
Man.
uh, and so we were at now it's I don't even know what kind of store it is now, but it's across from the Ambassador Hotel, which used to be Club Chemical. But we used to do a Wednesday night ULIT that started at Trago, right there on 11th and Grand.
Yeah.
Um, and so Trago, you know, it being it went so well that it ended up moving, you know, down to the River Market. Um, but that it was just a very different time. Like it was a very different time for Kansas City nightlife because again, you looking at uh I mean Kansas City at a time where again it's not really much nightlife.
Right.
Um so
But they had the
people
right
had
crowd there, and that's one thing I appreciated.
yeah.
As far as you live, because I truly believe the DJ controls the crowd.
Mhm.
Watching you all spin, y'all always kept it upbeat. Slash, I knew when to slow it down. Slash,
Yeah.
just gave such energy and it relieved. I believe it relieved the poets enough for people to truly respect the mic. You know,
Yeah. No,
I
definitely.
was doing it.
Yeah. And so like even around that time when they started ULIT, it just became it became like a staple in nightlife. It
Mhm.
just be like Wednesday nights, this is where the poets hang out at. Um, and you know, they were paying a band, so they did the DJ duties in-house. Um, and it's funny because the guy that they were renting their equipment from, I was just doing an event with him on 18th and Vine for Juneteenth not too long ago. So again, you know, just looking at interconnected my whole career with a lot of people. Um, but yeah, they were doing the DJing in house. I was the guy that knew all of the new music, but then I also knew some of the R&B and neo soul.
Right, right.
Um, and then even the other guy, you know, Devar. I know you knew
Oh,
Devar, but like,
Devar.
yeah. Um, Michael Long, but and
Man,
he does yoga classes now, but he
really?
was, you know, he was that guy that was really versed in like
Right.
the alternative of like R&B. Like neo soul was kind of mainstream, but then there was that other side of like neo soul that was like an
Right.
alternative side, and he was very tapped into that. So again, you got a New Orleans kid, a Chicago kid, and then you know Devar being from here, but having his different tastes,
Hmm.
and then us coming together. But then that ended up getting so big that it moved down to Cabal, and so that's what everybody remembers ULIT for is Cabal down in the
Hmm.
River Market, and I think that's like a law firm or some kind of like college, like a Mizzou satellite campus
Really?
facility or something. Yeah, it's something. It's not a club or a restaurant no more. But you know, Cabal was like that swanky restaurant that you can go and kind of get like some different kind of food. It was kind of upscale, but it was still
Right.
like a lounge. And you look
Right.
at early 2000s, it's
Didn't
not really
happen,
bottle
right?
service. Yeah, so like you're not doing bottle service in early 2000s, so it's more lounge vibes. Like that's where you're going to hear a little R&B with maybe some pop music or whatever it is, but happy hours were really the thing around then. So
Sex and
and
City time. Sex.
yeah, Sex in the City. You think about Hitch around that time doing speed dating. I know they did speed
Absolutely.
dating in there a couple times. Like it was
And we
that
look
type of
good. We look good when we showed up for that event. You know what I'm saying? You can go
yeah,
anywhere else, but when people came to Cabal's and they felt safe, number one, the music was slamming, drinks was good, and people would look. They just looked beautiful in all
yeah.
different styles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, nah, and that's what the beauty of it was because those type of nights really brought an eclectic energy that again wasn't your, up the street. It was Club Chemical on Wednesday nights when we were doing it at Trago. You go right across the street because I think we were 7 to 11. So you go over there. I think it was ladies' night on Wednesday, so it was two
You
for
hop
one
right
for
across the
them.
street.
Yeah, so you hop right across the street and
Mhm.
you get that, hip hop night, the hood night. You get that night in downtown Kansas City and it was a good night. It was a good night to hear some hip hop. It was a good night to get that type of culture. Which again, around Kansas City early 2000s, it's not very friendly for that. So you had these offshoot clubs that they do, and you look at like Boulevard Nights. I think he owned a club around then. I think he probably owned the club right around the corner from that. Used to be a gay club, Tootsie's. I think Tootsie's was right around the corner.
I used to go on there with my sisters and my family
N-
members. Best food, best drink, best music,
yeah,
and plenty of
yeah,
ladies. I don't care what nobody say. Hey,
yeah.
I was
And a
fit.
lot of a lot of guys would look at you crazy when it's like, yeah, I was up in the gay club with my cousins or my sister, or whoever it is. But again, like you said, you go in there, you got a DJ playing hip hop, you got some good food and all that. Like you got some drinks, you got your people around you.
I
So
was.
yeah, so like a lot of and again, like you're looking at DJs that need work. I end up knowing the DJ in there. Like it became that, like meeting that DJ there. He was another DJ that he did hip hop, but he was more in the EDM and trance. So
I still
and
think that's dope. I still mess with that kind of music. Period.
oh yeah, and he and rest in peace to Too Heavy because he just passed like in the past year or so as well. But he used to do a lot of the gay clubs around town, but he was a dope DJ. Like, and so again, just meeting a lot of people just from moving around, seeing what venues or what. And it helps me throughout my career. Like even throughout my career, I did a lot of events for like if it was the stud lesbian type of crowd, they had promoters, so they did parties. I've done parties for them.
I used to go with
Yeah,
my sister, and I'll be like, "Look, they had me way out on Berry Road one time. I
yeah,
forgot the name of that club, but me and my family, I said I came to chill with my
yeah,
brother and my sister, and we kicked it hard.
yeah, because you go to the hood spots, you got to look over your shoulder and make sure, when you leaving, you got to make sure it ain't in the middle of a fight or whatever. But when you go to these gay clubs and these other alternative clubs, it's like, damn, you don't have to worry about none of this.
Just bring your
So
and have a good time.
so again, like when I was at school seeing how they party, like I wanted to bring that home. So
Yeah.
that just have bringing that Southern club, college experience, wanting to bring that home. And then having also going to a lot of those eclectic clubs, like hearing meeting the DJs that play EDM, trance, and house,
Mhm.
and like really looking at their style and comparing it to a DJ Fresh and a DJ K Tone and a DJ Shad. Like again, like my musical palette was just so wide, like it was just being able to catch a lot of those different vibes. And it's
Mhm.
it's integral to your career in anything. Like if you're in sales, if you're selling, you got to know your customer. Like
Absolutely.
you have to know them, what they listen to, what they like, what they don't like. And that's what nightlife is. Like nightlife is taking a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life and cramming them in a room, but
Mhm.
then playing music to make sure that they don't leave.
Absolutely.
um Yeah, so that's what it turns into when you go from like, now it's power and light and going to those clubs. But like even back in the day, you had clubs around uh what was it, the plaza, where you had blonde and like a lot of a lot of those different clubs.
Casinos, blind, all them joints.
uh the drink the drink
Oh,
was over there.
drink was all right to me.
So you talked about we talked about earlier about establishments being open 2 to 3 years. The drink had a 2 year shelf life, but in nightlife, you talk to people now that are older in their 40s and late 30s, early 40s. They
Mhm.
remember the drink because it was again one of those spots. Um, but yeah, man, we veered so much, but
No, you
now.
good, brother. Because where I'm going with it is, let's go
Mhm.
from the nightlife and let's talk about where DJ Q is now. Because I've been paying attention, and I always wanted you on my show, but recently, I think last month, you've been getting a lot of great feedback for what you do in the community. Tell us where DJ Shot is outside of the nightlife. What are you doing, and where would I mean DJ Q? I'm sorry.
Yeah, nah, you good.
I'm like, oh, I was thinking about Shy because I got to get in contact with him. But tell us
Yeah.
what you're doing now, because you can start something so simple, but yeah, you start a flame, and I think that integrity and character means everything. And like I said, without you even knowing, I paid attention to you and G and all them. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? I don't care if it was either feels Joe Good and all of them, Soul Service. They all left a mark on me. But
Definitely.
what are you up to now? Tell us about where you are now and where you want your ventures to go.
I mean, basically now, I mean, things have really just progressed. I mean, we talked about getting the start in the club scene and through poetry nights.
Mm-hmm.
But then that progressed into doing parties. And I jumped through a couple of different signature events, like when Ken Lumpkin did First Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then that transition from working with Gary and his F Millionaire brand, and he had Perfect 10 models. And then that transition and working with like Joey Cuts.
Come
And I
on.
still work with Joey Cuts. We have I think it's the 12th now. Sheesh, it's probably been that long. I think we 12, 13 years in on doing Turkey Tuesday, and doing that drive. So again, you talk about the
Go.
community. Joey Cuts is one of those guys in the community. He ran for political office and didn't get it. But even in that, he's still very connected to the community. And it shows that he cares. Like he took his resources to run for office like a district councilman. So like I've worked with Joey over the years, doing fresh cut, fresh start, giving free haircuts to kids, before they start the school year. So we do fresh cut, fresh start in August. We do Turkey Tuesday, but we really do a whole week for Thanksgiving. Um, so that's some charitable things coming up. I mean, we've done hurricane relief and all kinds of things through his foundation, but
Mm-hmm.
working with the No Joey Foundation, it really keeps me, rooted in the community, as doing those community events. So again, kids and working with with people that are just in need,
Mm-hmm.
wherever it is. And then transitioning that, working with Jerron and all the guys at Pure Entertainment, a lot that we did, really breaking ground, one of the first groups to do a party in the Sprint Center, and things like that. But even now, that progressing into taking all these years of nightlife knowledge, and I mean really just the culture of hip hop, type of events, like hip hop centered events, taking that and building a nightlife app, Up Down Nightlife. And I've been working with the guy doing that, Josh Lewis. That's his baby. But we've been working together. Oh, it's probably 5 years, maybe 4 or 5, probably getting close to 6.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we've been working together, just doing a lot of parties around town at a lot of different venues, a lot of different parts of town,
Mm-hmm.
and turning that into an app. and the Up Down Nightlife app. It's only available on iPhone right now, but
Y'all be
you know,
killing
hope
that iPhone stuff. It's Android Nation.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, and so hopefully we can get on Android, you know, as the app gets a little bit more developed, and you know, we start building a user base. But it's just, you know, when you're in app development, your development is figuring out the hard part first, and that's, you
absolutely.
know, Apple, and really trying to figure out how to program that. But
And
you
that's
know, we
I mean, to even think that, you know, you're surrounded by great people. You never know who you walk by that's creative and that can
yeah.
voice. And I hear you voicing a lot of things, and that's one thing I didn't know so much about you is that you give people their flowers all the time. When you
All the
recently
time.
got an award, or
Yeah.
let's big up you for it.
No, definitely. And that's funny because the two young ladies that run Show Me Shoes, the Show Me Shoes Foundation. One of the girls, well, there's Siobhan and Anika. Also another full circle moment. I went to high school with them.
Okay.
And I think they graduated the year after her. But um I've known them since high school. They've always been movers and shakers. I have as well.
Mhm.
But Show Me Shoes was a foundation. I think they started off collecting shoes for young girls that needed shoes for prom. You know, they couldn't afford it. And then it turned into them doing drives for dresses. I think they had a couple of different programs centered around it. I think one was more than a dress, but they mentor young women
It's good.
going into college, you know, high
Right,
school going
right.
into college. Um, and so for their anniversary this year, I think it was the 11th or 12th anniversary. Um, they honor every year, they honor somebody in the community. And it was normally women, because it was called Moguls in Heels. And they just switched it up, I think a couple of years ago, and started honoring men as well.
Mhm.
So this year, they honored me, especially, you know, like I said, for my work in the community, you know, not only in nightlife, but like
Right.
community work as well. So it was, you know, a mixture of business and community. And they honored another young lady that runs a clothing store called Clothes Minded. So both of us were featured this year, and they gave me a really nice award. I'd show it if it wasn't upstairs, but no, they gave me a really nice award, and it was good, just like recognition. Um, and they are two outstanding young ladies, um, that not only do work with young women,
Mhm.
but they also work with a lot of men, that are just great examples. So,
And that's a beautiful thing because that's kind of no child left behind that we truly need.
hmm
Just
hmm
letting people go through the system. And I believe, like, you know, like I always say, it's too many humans in the world and not enough humane people. And
right.
understand the difference, then I believe that we will have understanding because, you know, labels are just that. And despite what people think, you know, labels and words, you know, influence people. That's why I always
hmm
tell people stop giving people labels that's unearned. You need to
Yeah.
earn that respect more. And it's so funny because last week I interviewed Crystal. We went to school and she had mentioned your name, and I was like, I've been trying to get Q on there, and she told me about the event that you did with Joe Black that y'all started, and I just
hmm
think it's just super dope, bro, that you have stood the test of time. You can look people in the eye and not waver from who you are. You have been
Yeah.
authentic to yourself each and every time I saw you. So that's why the last time at Effie's record release, I was
Yeah.
genuinely excited to see you, but I didn't want to. I was
Yeah.
just like, Q's here. Okay, this is
Yeah.
cool, you know. And
Nah,
I
it
was
was
so
it was
proud.
unexpected to see you too. So
I
yeah.
was so proud to see you still doing you. Like I said, you still move the same, but you've grown so much.
Yeah.
And besides Shad, you, I've always watched Fresh, and I think Dink because I used to go two
Yeah.
steps out there. You
Hey,
know, I used to listen.
DJ.
He's
DJ
crazy.
Dink is
True
a
fan.
staple. Yeah, it's a lot of DJs you can mention in Kansas City because the culture is very deep. But when you look at a lot of like the versatility in DJs, like yeah, Dink is that. Like he might be the two-step DJ, but DJ Dink is gonna turn the party up if it need to be
Hey,
turned up.
he
He
will
gonna slow it
travel to get the
down.
party started. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, DJ Dink is that. But like again, just having like a lot of those mentors around,
Right.
it I'm at an advantage because I was just a curious kid going to go listen to music. I wanted to go hear what the DJ sound like. Like even at school in Louisiana, you see a lot of different DJs. And so just soaking in that, I wanted to bring that home. And that was always a point in my career. Even doing soul sessions, and I probably ran soul sessions for most of the time you was gone. But I mean, from 2010 to 2016, every Monday night at the Juke House, like we really focused on the artistry.
Right.
A lot of people wanted to come in and they wanted to come to soul sessions to play their new single. Um, but me being a DJ, I'm like, nah, don't come and play your single. We have a full live band. Let them play your song and you perform it. And that's what
Mm,
the point of soul sessions, when I was doing it, the point of it was to prepare people for the bigger stages. If you are an artist that takes your craft, whatever it is, seriously, you're going to get the performance piece down just as much as you're going to get the songwriting down or the beat making or whatever it is in music. So and we housed a lot of that R&B neo soul that we talk about. A
mm,
lot of that became like the India Aries, the Erica Badu's, the
mhm.
Jill Scotts. Like that was the songs people always wanted to sing. um and so again, another full circle moment. That's what soul sessions was, and soul sessions is still going now. I probably haven't been in ages, but even then, from 2010 and then changing hands and even still being ran today in 2021,
Yeah,
I mean, that just it just shows the foundation of goals that I set for myself, um and really turned it into things that can be a legacy in Kansas City.
absolutely. And you have been that. You've been a staple with G and Big Ant and
Mhm.
Siobhan Queen. Poetry and so many
Yeah.
ramen noodles and government cheese with Simeon and
Yeah.
so many other players. But I have to shout this gentleman out because I'm going to send you the preview that I did. Just give me 30 seconds about Just Jay because
Oh man. Yeah. No, Just
I
Jay
can't
is
let you I can't speak to you without even talking
yeah.
about
N-
staples that we've been around.
Nah, definitely. And when you talk about staples of comedy in Kansas City, like it's Just Jay. Just Jay probably, oh, if I could remember when he passed, but it was probably around 2012,
But
2013,
yes.
somewhere in there. And he was a comedian that I met, just coming up as a DJ. You do all these random private gigs and stuff. And
Mm.
Just Jay was doing comedy at, I think it was like I don't even know if it was a barbecue or a small event, maybe a graduation or something. It was random to have a comedian. And he came up there doing comedy, man, and he killed it. From I think he was just getting out of high school. He may have been 19, 20. Nope, that's where I met Jay. I met him working at Home Depot. I forgot about that. I met Jay working at Home Depot. And
Was he
that, but
working there or was he trying to buy something? Because I know he wasn't trying to fit
no, he was working there. I was and this is when I'm early, right before I really got into my DJ career. But
in.
yeah, working at Home Depot as a cashier, then I started doing a paint department. But yeah, just Jay was the Jay Jackson was the he was a lot attendant. So he pretty much pushed carts, but that was like the genius of Jay. Like Jay just got a job. He didn't really have to do much, load a couple of cars, push some carts. And so what he did is he went to department and just told jokes to everybody. And so like
he performed at Cabals. We at the port, and he grabbed the mic with that
yeah,
hand and look at you in your face and tell your
yeah,
jokes. That's
yeah.
crazy. Talk about you in
Nah,
your face.
and just Jay, man, he was just that guy that he really kind of pushed comedy forward in Kansas City, especially when you look at bringing a lot of comedy acts in as a comedian, and doing monthly nights at the Improv, flying in the likes of TK Kirkland, and I more people now would know Lil Rel than they knew him back then, but him and Just Jay were like they were like that because they were up and coming comedians, just going around the country doing opening gigs for, Earthquake and different things. Because Just Jay used to talk about Earthquake still in his jokes, and like Lil Rel would talk about that, and like just how a lot of older comedians like we opened it up for him, but we end up seeing them again somewhere else, and they didn't already stole our joke they heard from the opening. But it's like, yeah, that just shows how great Jay was, man. He right before he passed, he was talking about doing some audition for some show that was going to be on HBO. But then you look at that, you look at him riding around with Lil Rel and going on these little trips, because Lil Rel's from Chicago, but like Lil Rel is known for being in Get Out, but then he also has a role in the Photograph. So just looking at how like comedy has took him, and somebody in his proximity was Just Jay. Just Jay is he's
So,
RIP to him.
I miss his
You
character,
know,
his humor. This is,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
that preview that I put up, I made sure I had the picture with you, with the Just Jay on that joint.
Nah, yeah, because that's history, man. Because like even then with the Just Jay thing, that's when I was doing parties with Pure Entertainment, and that just him being on the back of that, it was a joke he would tell all the time. It was one of like his signature jokes, and it was a Halloween joke. Now that we coming around to it, and he said his mama put him in a put him in a orange shirt with a green cap. And he was like, you went to everybody's house and everybody would ask, "Oh, what are you, a pumpkin?" And he was like, "No, I'm a gallon of orange juice." But so it's like just he had that kind of humor. It was very silly humor, but it was very relatable, especially to people in Black culture, because he had all the commentary. You can look him up, JUSJAY on Facebook, and he still has videos up just of him talking about the Chiefs, talking about Soldier Boy and all that. Just Jay is he's forever in my heart.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, young brother, I've held you hostage for so long. Again, I just wanted to give you your flowers and let you know that like we talked about off camera, people do pay attention to certain people. And that's
Definitely.
what it was about. I want to give people their flowers now, and to give a voice to those who normally wouldn't talk, or give a voice to those who, need that platform. And you, my brother, you have stood the test of time. I have enjoyed your talent for many years. I have met many women off of your music because I knew the neo soul.
Definitely.
You were the only one playing what I was listening to.
Definitely.
So, but more than anything, it's a genuine love and respect for you. And like I said, I authentically, have always looked at you as a gentleman and a real man, and I appreciate you for that. In closing, I want you to do your shout outs, but I always ask in life, through everything that you've been through and where you feel like you want to go, what do you feel like your 3% is? What has been the driving force in your life that most people wouldn't even think of or know about you?
I mean, if I'm to be in the 3%, it's just really my pursuit for change. And really that's what it is. And it's not even change in a negative sense. When I speak of myself as a change agent, I mean, if you follow me on social media, you see I always have political commentary mixed with party nightlife stuff and creative stuff. But when I talk about change, I wanted to change nightlife in Kansas City and be able to not only just DJ in these hole in the walls that Black people had access to, but being able to do clubs that are the mainstream clubs that you see in the brochures coming in, you
Right.
know, coming into KCI, and
Mhm.
they talking about Westport and Power and Light, and you know, whatever district there is. I wanted Kansas City to be able to have some kind of hip hop there.
Right.
And if I wasn't the first, I probably was one of the ones that, you know, again, like Soul Sessions, bringing a live music night there, an open mic, that people can come enjoy. I mean, even a Westport now, how Westport looks mostly hip hop, you know, me having a couple of nights there. So just change. Yeah. The my push for change is really what puts me in that 3%, because, you know, it's not truly diverse if Black people aren't there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I truly appreciate that. Do you have any shout outs, any future things coming up? You know, so I just want to give you the floor to shout that out. Anybody that inspire you, any future endeavors that you're doing, you have the floor, young brother.
No, definitely. Right now, and really for the last 5 to 6 years of my life has been all up down nightlife. So the Up Down Nightlife app, people with iPhones download that. If not, still follow the Instagram, the Twitter, and you can go to updownnightlife.com and really find any of the social pages. But you know, as we progress outside of Kansas City, hopefully, you know, looking in the next year or so, as we get the app developed, we'll be pushing outside of the city, and definitely getting to other markets and cities, whatever you have. And we actually have Houston on the radar, so you'll
Absolutely.
definitely be somebody we'll have to run into there. But outside of that, just DJQ. I run my own lifestyle brand. It's called Fifth Avenue. So if you see any up down nightlife type of parties, it's normally attached to Fifth Avenue, and that Fifth Avenue is my baby. It's a lifestyle brand. Um, Hopefully by end of the year, but if not by end of the year, top of the year, I'll be having some apparel out for that.
I
But
mean, if I will send you, I'll cash app you what I need because I need some of that.
yeah, definitely. And it'll the my brand color is a very deep purple. Um and so it's, you know, it's some history in that. But like, yeah, some Fifth Avenue style merches will be coming out that'll really kind of build onto it. And I'm really putting that business together as far as like what type of media and things that I'll be putting out. But you know, everything else DJQ can be found on my website, and that's djqspin.me. So if anybody's looking out for me and want to hear some mixes, I know we talked a lot about me DJing and some backstories, but like I have mixes on there that really uh go into an alternative style of like R&B and rap and stuff. So it's a lot of underground music, but then it's also a lot of some of the oldies that you would know
Right.
in those mixes. But then it's some new stuff you may not have heard, so some new budding R&B artist, and that's basically what Fifth Avenue is. Fifth Avenue is a lifestyle brand that really kind of focuses on the alternatives, especially when it comes to like pop culture.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the Proximity mix series is the mix series that I have, and it's on Apple Music, SoundCloud, and all that. But you just find it going straight to my media tab. Um, you know, people can keep up with events on my event page on my website, but then my media tab will have, you know, all of my involvement, whether it's community involvement or just putting out mixes for people to listen to.
Cool beans, cool beans. And I do have his bio. It will be in this link below. Again, brother, like I said, I just wanted to give you your roses and let you know you are appreciated. I've been in Ray for 10 years. And like I said, I literally was excited when I saw you. I'm very proud that you were on that stage
Definitely.
because I've been knowing Joe since we were little. And his older,
Yeah.
we went to high school together, and his older brother, Jonathan. So, man,
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you your flowers now. And again, KC, like, check this brother out. He has the app if you for listening to the show. Please check that out. Check this gentleman's social media out. I mean, he's all around good dude, and I respect him. And that's really what it is. Give me 1 second. I don't have no cool little outro.
Nah, you don't need an outro, man. I definitely appreciate it because it's not often people take the reins of things and really start them from a homegrown level. So I'm ready right now to see your progression over the next couple of years with this endeavor. So
Hey, I appreciate it, man. It's just even in, like I said, if I won $1 million, I'd probably still be a Jay Clampett. I'll still
yeah.
I gotta pump 3 times and turn. I ain't doing that push to start. Give me
Definitely.
1 second right quick. All right, y'all, that's the end of the show.